Kursaal Records is one of my favourite shops, and still one of my favourite shops definitely to go back to in Southend. And Paul, who runs the place, is a soul boy. You know, he was a DJ in the 80s, part of the Southend Northern Soul scene. It was really important to me and my friends growing up from the very early ages of being in our mid-teens at school. That was the sound of our kind of teenage years.
Rhys always had incredible enthusiasm for anything sort of wacky and unusual. Right across the board really, Northern Soul, you know, blues, any sort of interesting music he would be interested in.
Places like that you'd go in, you know, and just talk about a record, or a record would be playing, and then you'd end up spending 2 hours, 3 hours with Paul going through a box. Oh, have you heard this? Have you heard this?
You could spend hours, you know, looking at records and digging, you know, for something that would interest him.
So I'd probably go to Kursaal Records 3 times a week, every week, living in Southend, any opportunity I had, you know.
Yeah, if he's in the area and I'm open, he'll pop in, and he's still an avid collector.
We were lucky because if we'd have maybe grown up anywhere else, we might not have had the education or the roots in or introduction to a lot of the music, you know, that is so important to us now and was definitely then. Bandstand and the statue of Queen Victoria, that's been the same since the late 1800s. The bandstand itself is just, you know, it's just amazing, old Victorian bandstand. A great piece of Victoriana and just a fantastic thing to see. I guess for me that's where the liveliness, you know, of what's great about the Southend comes to life. The statue of Queen Victoria was presented to Southend as a celebration for Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee. There's a story that's been told for years and years and years, probably almost as long as it's been there, that it's moved position, the statue moved. And the story I was told was that some drunk people on their way home pointed her towards the public toilets, which is the story you kind of grow up being told. The Royal Hotel is an amazing grand old building, and it's just for us massively important because it's where we started our club night, the Junk Club. It was almost a bit like a 40 Towers kind of affair inside, but for one night of the month we would take it over in their basement. It wasn't a night in town that we were interested in going to. It just evolved from that initial idea of wanting to be involved in something that was brand new, especially as being someone in your late teens, something that was brand new happening then. It just became a fantastic party. It was a very underground party. The cool thing about it was it created its own scene, basically, and that's where we all came together, you know. In fact, we were sitting in the window of the Royal Hotel, the 5 of us sitting around the table all drinking, and there was this little conversation that had been happening with the guys about talking about wanting to get this band together, and then we played our first show 2 weeks later after that as well. Peter Pan's, God knows when it was built. I guess it could have even been the 50s, but it could have been as far as the 70s, I've got no idea. That idea of being a fun park is always kind of spooky and a bit strange, and the colours and the vibrancy and it's never been too grand or high tech or anything. That sound of going up the hill before you go down, or the familiar repetitive programmed sound of whatever it was behind a slot machine, you know, this mechanical thing. Stuff that haunts you but excites you at the same time, and without thinking about becomes something a part of you as a person. So even talking about it now, it's strange because then you start thinking about these things. But the sights and sounds, you know, of the seafront, I think, are one of the special things about growing up so close by, because they just become so familiar and so much a part of your world, I guess. Chinnerys is the venue we always go to play. We always make sure it's going to be on the UK tour. It's also the place I would have gone to see the new bands coming through. And local bands as well will play there. So it got to a point where actually Chinnerys was almost the last venue for my generation or our generation or the kids younger than me as well to go and see bands. So it's a place the Horrors will always go back. And it's like a homecoming gig. It's our place where we grew up and spent a lot of time, so it's definitely probably the smallest venue in the UK that we'll play. We get to have that really intimate, sweaty, you know, you're right in front of the crowd as well and you're just there, bang on top of them, so it's always like a really mad exchange of energy. We chose the Kursaal as one of our South End spots, not because it's significant so much to us as a band or as individuals, but more of its significance to the South End music scene. It was a place where everyone went to party. I think it was one of the places that had one of the biggest dance floors of any of the kind of amusement arcades or dance halls. And of course it was always really important as a venue, from the jazz bands, skiffle groups, and through the 70s with rock and roll bands. It's perhaps not quite as grand as it used to be, but an important place.